This is a tough topic, and I really want to explain this well. It's something that's near and dear to my heart, and it has been for a really long time. And I'm not just saying this, we made these videos years before we actually had a food plot seed company. And so I'm not going to mention our company that much at all, other than this topic and what surrounds bad food plot seed blends, is near and dear to my heart because I've been experimenting and writing about and teaching, writing books, web classes about food plots for 25 years, at least really experimenting a lot. And my first food plot was 30 years ago now. So it's something really important to me. And I'll just mention we're on clients. I was on clients, 7 clients in Michigan the last 8 days, just got back last night. And I continually see bad food plot examples. For example, food plots that are instructed to plant in early August and they have heavy oats. So the oats are now 2 feet tall, everything's drowned out, and bad mix. Kale, we see that continually. I saw this on multiple properties where kale is in the brassica blend, the deer don't eat it, so now it's rotting in the spring and it took up space, and so the deer don't eat the other stuff inside the bad stuff. No different than, let's say you spill soybeans into a standing wall of screening. The soybeans won't be eaten in the screening, but they'll be eaten 2 feet away out in the open. During the summertime, they might even be eaten to the dirt, and the beans aren't touched in the screening wall. So if you mix seeds in bad seeds with good seeds, they can block the use. We see a lot of stuff like that, but the thing that really gets me is if you look on the back of your seed bag. I'm not trying to make this stuff up. This is all verifiable stuff. You look at the back of the seed bag and you'll see an amount that says inert matter. That inert matter, we've seen seed blends up to 51% inert matter. Inert matter is something other than seed. And that could be dirt from the floor, could be seed chaff, it could be weeds. We even had a problem recently where not our switchgrass, but someone else's, they were somehow, not the companies that sell it, like the food plot companies, that kind of thing, but the manufacturer of that seed misrepresented, or the lab made severe mistakes how much foxtail there was in the switchgrass. So they're actually rebating people for switchgrass, not that company, but the companies that sold it, because people had 10 times the amount of foxtail or whatever. They had to independently test it, and it wasn't labeled correctly. So now people planted switchgrass with way too much foxtail. Any amount of foxtail is bad, but their switchgrass was taking over 5 foxtail. So it's like they planted foxtail instead of switchgrass, and it's consuming weed. It was labeled incorrectly. All that stuff has to be labeled legally. They can't misrepresent it. So look at the inert matter there. Now companies, because seed coating should be labeled as inert matter, people are starting to misrepresent it. They'll say, well, inert matter is only 1%, but seed coating, there's 32%. So I really want to talk about that seed coating and what it means. Seed coating, by and large, is bad because when we got into the industry, we went to a big seed wholesaler that sells 65 million pounds of seed a year. It's crazy the amount of seed they go through, and worldwide company. And they told us that in the food plot industry, it's common for food plot seed companies to coat their seed with lime, which doesn't do anything to help it germinate. But what that does is take up space in the bag, so you get 5.5 pounds instead of 8 pounds of brassica or clover, whatever it might be. There are coatings out there that in theory help create a better or higher germination rate. Maybe that's true, maybe it isn't. There's good testing to show that coated ag plot seeds perform better. We in food plotters, we are not farmers, we're food plotters, and there's a lot of inconsistencies. So we look at these coatings as, do they actually make up for the lack of having 2.5 pounds of seed in the bag? Because if you are at 30% and you have a 10-pound bag of seed, that means you get 7 pounds of seed. If there's 30% inert matter or coatings, you still only get 7 pounds of seed. However they label it, even if they mislabel it, you're still only getting 7 pounds of seed in the bag. And that's the problem, especially when it comes to us food plotters. Because even if there's a smidge of better germination, and I'm saying even if, that doesn't mean it's a good thing. And they do this the same in the turf industry with grass seed. It's the same exact thing. So What they'll do is you'll have a 50-pound bag of uncoated seed that sells for, let's just easy math, let's just say $50 an acre for a bag of seed. So that 50 pounds plants an acre, and it's $50. So then another bag will have 35 pounds of seed, but it's coated, and they'll say that plants an acre, and they'll charge $35. So someone looking at the bag side by side, that one's smaller, but yeah, that one says it plants an acre, this one says it plants an acre. You buy the $35 one, and now you get 15 pounds less seed, and the company you bought it for has higher profit margin because they didn't have to put 15 pounds in the bag, and the coating is next to nothing for cost. Do you know that on our seed that we sell, we have to pay to not get coated seed? And there's a reason we do that. If I thought the coating was better, if I thought of the latest, greatest, gold standard coating, special habitat boost, whatever you call it, coating was going to make the seed better and perform better for you in the bag, you can bet that after 25 years of research, I would offer that if it would make up for that. Bad germination rates. I'm going to talk about that. Coatings, the latest boost, low seed count is what it gives you. And low seed count is something I want you to focus on just for a second. I know this is kind of a boring topic, but it's something because I feel like sometimes people are taking advantage of people in the seed industry, in the hunting industry especially, and some people just don't know. And that's a big part of it too. I'd like to think it's the latter. The people aren't trying to be dishonest, they just don't know. What happens is you have, instead of 8 pounds, you have 5.5 in the bag, 5.5 pounds a bag. So that ends up happening when we're food plotters. We're not farmers. We don't have consistent tilling, consistent soil. Food plotting, our seed depth varies. If we drag it, it could be on the top, it could be down in. Even if you drill it, is your drill correct with the elevation changes within the food plot? Are you planting on a totally flat surface? Most of us aren't. When it comes to rain and moisture, do we have the perfect moisture? Are we planting more no-till where the seed's on the surface, or can we take advantage of a little bit better soil moisture rate because we're putting the seed deeper into the soil? So as food plotters, you don't know. You really don't. There's a lot of inconsistencies with that. So some could be drier on top, some are, you put that seed in, some could be a 1/4 inch down, some are 1 inch down. Some of the 1 inch seed doesn't grow, some of the 1/4 inch seed does. So if, let's just say if, in theory, the coated seed made up for in some different, some way with the lack of the 2.5 pounds of seed in the bag, you had higher germination rates that made up for that. Let's just say the big if. The problem with that is we're not consistent planters in food plot, and frankly, even farming at times isn't either. But with food plotting, our timing, a lot of times we plan to plant it on this weekend, we end up planting another weekend. We plan to plant before this rain, we don't get the rain. We plan to do no-till, we put it on top of the soil, but then it sits there and bakes for 3 weeks because the rain doesn't come that we had, and we have poor soil that we don't put enough lime on, we don't fertilize it enough. We're not farming for a crop. Let's face it, food plotters, we lose money in our crop the second we buy it, put it in the ground. Farmers have to make money or they wouldn't be farmers, professional farmers. So they do things at a lot different level than we do, not to mention weed control. We go to so many plots, we look at them for a living. Dylan goes to 70 days a year. I'll be about 70 days a year. Wes, I think about 18 days. He was our full-time seed manager, or he'd go to more. And then Kevin and Joe go to another 120 combined, somewhere around there. So we look at food plot and we analyze food plots all the time. And what you find is there's not consistent high quality weed control in all these areas. And that could do with timing, methods, whatever you do. But bottom line is, this is what happens. So you have let's say everything perfect, you're gonna get better germination rate. You're gonna get healthy plants, 5.5 pounds of seed. If everything's perfect, which I don't think it makes up for the lack of 2.5 pounds of seed, but let's say it does, in a perfect world. This is what happens. Because we don't have consistent seed depth, we can't control moisture with planting methods. The soil quality can vary greatly. We're not taking care of weeds like we should. No-till versus tilling. We plant all different ways where farmers are typically planting a standard practice way, whether it's no-till or till, and we get germination. And this is what happens. The plants grow, they do well, But because nothing's consistent, you lose seed. And when you lose seed count, that's the problem because of our inconsistent planting. Then you get plants that don't fill volume. There's gaps in growth unless it's perfect, and we are never perfect. We're never perfect, and we try to control all the variables as someone who does this for a living and a professional in this industry. There'll be gaps. And what'll happen with those gaps, and we see this all the time, is you'll see online. I saw this last year. Some of the newer seed company, the plants are growing. They're extremely healthy. Let's say brassica is 30 inches, 24 inches high, looking beautiful and green. And they'll say, hey, we've had lack of moisture, we've had drought. So we have to fill this in with rye to fill in the holes in this area. They probably don't even know. If there was drought, you wouldn't have these big, beautiful plants with gaps until the next beautiful plant. The problem is there wasn't enough seed in the bag. So the seed that did die, that didn't germinate well because of inconsistent planting methods, soil type, weed control, everything, then there's gaps in those plants that they have to fill because there wasn't enough seed in the bag to begin with. We want to hit a sweet spot. So we look at, like, in our brassica mix, it's 8 pounds per acre. Clover mix is 8 pounds per acre. A lot of times people don't understand that too. This is why I like buying a commercial blend. Did you know that 3 pounds of tillage radish is 20% of an acre? Did you know that 0.67 pounds of purple top turnip is 20% of an acre? So when you're looking at those mixtures, rape, for example, 1 pound of rape is 5 pounds per acre. 1 pound of rape seed, dwarf Essex rape in particular, is 20% of a mix. Because it's 5 pounds per acre for dwarf Essex rape. It's 15 pounds per acre of tillage radish if no-tilled. And then it's 3 pounds per acre of purple top turnip is what you want in for a total acre. So in order to have 20% of a representation of each one of those, you have to play with those. A lot of the forage brassicas are more like 6 pounds, 7 pounds per acre. So you have to calculate that out, and we do that with all our seed blends for you. But you have to know that stuff. But bottom line is, outside of that, if everything's done perfect, if you don't have enough seed germinated, you're going to have holes. So we want to hit a sweet spot. We want to make it so we're pushing that line of being too much seed and then not being enough seed. And so we have no filler and no junk in there. If you look at our inert matter, it'll be 2% or less, 1% or less, or 0. It's very, very, very low. Because we want you to have pure seed in the bag. We pay extra not to have coated seed because we want to ensure your success. We want to make sure you have enough. And when you have enough, then let's just say in theory that because of the inconsistent planting depths, weed control, moisture, seed timing, planting timing, everything, you get some seed that dies. All this red stuff right here, seed dies. But because you have enough seed in the bag, and we're never going to be perfect when we plant like a farmer, then we get a full volume blend with no gaps in the canopy of what we're planting. Hope that makes sense. This is a hard topic to follow. And I really feel like, most people, and especially in the hunting industry, it's different in the ag industry, because ag industry, everything's done for the perfection of ag. So when you look at studies that are based on ag, it's no different than looking at mature buck movements. All the scientific studies on mature buck movements are based on thousands of acres plus, because they can't control enough variables to pass the scrutiny of peer review. When you look at mature buck movement within highly designed and high quality parcels in small parcel areas, 40 acres, 100 acres, 80 acres, 20 acres, they're looking at buck movement in thousands of acres plus, which does not reflect how bucks move and behave on small, intensely managed properties. And they can never pass it. And this is going from the most peer-reviewed scientist, whitetail research scientist ever, John Azogo. He told me that it would cost tens of millions of dollars in a decade or more to study small parcel movement over a huge landscape to have enough variables covered to pass the scrutiny and peer review. And that's what a lot of these scientists look at. So the only thing they can do is look at these large parcels in Texas or Georgia or big wooded parcels in Pennsylvania, it's not reflective. And that's the same in the seed industry. All these studies are done on big ag and looking at soybeans and alfalfa germinations. You can look them up online and you can Google it and look at it. You'll see that you can get by with smaller amounts of seed that are coated if that coating promotes germination when everything is controlled. But again, it's not controlled, and it never will be in the food plotting industry and the food plot planting. So even if it did give higher germination, which they're coating things like brassica, it doesn't help germination. You don't need to have, most clovers come pre-inoculated, so you don't need to have coating like that. The coating will say it, well, it's pre-inoculant. And lime, you need tons per acre, not 3 pounds in a bag per acre. They're so different. So I look at, why do people do this? Well, I would like to think that it's just a lack of knowledge for the most part. And even people will even spread the gospel. They'll look at this and they get free seed from XYZ company, and that's the best seed to plant. And that's why we don't have like a pro staff. We don't have, because I don't want someone singing our tunes just because we give them free stuff. I want them to believe in the product. If they don't believe into it, I don't want to give them free stuff. I don't care who it is. And we want them to actually enjoy our product because it's pure. So I would like to think that a lot of people just don't know better. They're doing it because they're told this. A wholesaler tells them this. The seed company tells this to other people. Retailers, they look at it like, well, we're gonna spread this gospel, and it's not true, but they're told it's true. And who else are you going to listen to? So that's why I came out with this video. I really wanted to try to explain this topic. I'd like to think that it's that group of people, mostly in the hunting industry, that just don't know better. But there are, and we have this directly from wholesalers, that companies in the food plot industry coat their seed so they can put less seed in the bag so they can meet profit margins. And that's why our seed will probably never be in a big box store, because the big box stores dictate a certain range for what certain seeds can be sold for, brassica blend, a clover blend, whatever it might be. They can't be the outside of the range too much. And so if you put 2.5 to 3 pounds less seed in the bag out of 8 pounds, that's really helping your profit margin for being able to get it into a big box store. And that's why we probably won't be in a box store, because unless there's some scientific breakthrough that proves to me that we can get better germination rates with 2.5 pounds less seed in the bag, or 2 pounds less, or 20% less, or whatever the inert matter is on your label, then we're not going to offer that. We're always going to have that pure amount of seed with as few weeds as we can have and as few junk and inert matter and coated seeds as we can have. But boy, there's seed companies out there that are doing it to make a profit. And that's why some of them can offer free shipping online. Well, they can offer free shipping if they're putting, and some of those companies in particular, is 51% inert matter on the back of the bag on their legal label. So if they're putting half as much seed in the bag, why not offer free shipping? They're still making more than someone who put full seed in the bag. So folks, read your labels. You can tell this this is a near and dear to my heart topic. We've been putting videos out like this for a very long time, even showing labels in the past, blocking out names. I don't like to call out anyone in particular. I just ask you to be aware. And I tried to explain this coating as best as possible. This is not something I came up with. This is something you can do some research online. But our seed wholesaler, they offer coated seed for other food plot companies. We pay extra to not have coated seed, and we charge the same price per bag as those other companies do per acre too. I want to mention that. We're not charging more. We're charging the industry average, and we keep it at the industry average. We just want you to have a higher success rate, which is why we really enjoy you guys purchasing our seed online. We do have retailers that are good people, but our goal is to be able to sell you a product that you can actually, our previous wholesaler, when we first came out with our 2 blends of seed, we had to charge a lot more. In fact, our brassica blend was $49.50. People said we were price gouging because the average is around $39.50. Well, it's because we were paying $24.50 for 4 pounds for a half-acre blend, when the seed wholesalers that person was buying from, it was $8.50. So literally 3 times more for a half-acre amount of seed. And so with that, we had to charge $10 more per bag. And you know what happened when we started going through a true professional wholesaler? We dropped the price by $10 to $12 a bag so we could pass that off to the consumer, and we still had our net profit margins. You still have to make a living. You still have to be a viable business, which is what we try to do, which is probably why we won't get them into the big box store company. So I hope you guys understand that. We try to offer a pure product, but most of all, I want you to understand seed coatings. Again, our wholesaler and the person that came with us through different transitions in their even employment, we trust them wholly. They've been in the industry over 20 years and they understand this to a T. We'll probably have him on a podcast or something at some point because he's a wealth of information, but he's the one that explained this to me about not having full volume blends because of the lack of seed, because of the inconsistent planting. I hope that makes sense, and that you can check out these labels on bags when you're considering a purchase and understand what's in that bag and not believe some of the hype that goes along with it. Because I'll tell you, if we could put that hype in our bag and it was better for you, we'd do it, and I don't believe it is.